hidden deep in the northeastern corner of Utah, far away from crowded cities, far away from highways and civilization, sits a 512-acre piece of land that has become one of the most controversial locations in modern paranormal history. A place where witnesses claim the impossible became ordinary. A place where science met mystery and walked away without all the answers. This is Skinwalker Ranch. But before it became famous for UFO sightings, strange creatures, and government investigations, the land already carried a reputation. For generations, stories surrounding the region spoke of strange encounters, unexplained events, and warnings about forces that should not be disturbed. Long before researchers arrived, before cameras were installed, before scientists walked across the property, this region was home to native peoples whose stories and traditions stretch back centuries. The name Skinwalker Ranch comes from legends surrounding the idea of a dangerous supernatural entity in Navajo folklore. However, the ranch sits in Ute territory, and the cultural history of these traditions is complex. Over time, stories from different communities became intertwined with the mystery surrounding the land, and eventually, the name itself became connected with one of America's most famous paranormal locations. The stories surrounding the areas grew over time. Some spoke of strange lights moving across the sky. Others described unusual creatures roaming the landscape. And some claimed the land itself felt different, as if something about the area was watching. But legends are easy to miss. Stories can change. Memories can become exaggerated. The real mystery began when ordinary people with no reason to create a legend claimed they experienced things they could not explain. The question that would eventually draw scientists, investigators, and even government attention was simple. What was happening on this piece of land? Was it a case of misunderstood natural phenomena? A series of coincidences? Something created by human imagination? Or was there something happening at Skinwalker Ranch that challenged our understanding of reality itself? In the late 1990s, a family moved onto the property believing they had found their dream home. Instead, they would become the first witnesses in a modern mystery that would capture the attention of the world. In 1994, a man named Terry Sherman and his wife Gwen purchased a ranch in northeastern Utah. From the outside, it looked like the perfect place to escape. Hundreds of acres of open land, fresh air, quiet nights, a place where their family could live away from the noise of the modern world. But almost immediately after arriving, they began noticing something unusual. The ranch didn't feel empty. It felt like something was there. At first, the strange events seemed harmless, small things that could have ordinary explanations, until the animals arrived. One evening, the family noticed something unusual near their cattle. A large animal was standing nearby. At first glance, they believed it was a wolf. But when they looked closer, they realized something was wrong. The animal was enormous, much larger than any wolf. According to the Shermans, it appeared calm, almost unnaturally calm, and instead of running away, it walked directly toward their livestock. The family feared their animals were about to be attacked. Terry reportedly grabbed a firearm and attempted to scare the creature away. according to accounts from the family, the animal showed almost no reaction. They claimed it appeared unusually resistant and unaffected. Eventually, the creature left, but the encounter stayed with them, because whatever they had seen didn't behave like a normal predator. But the wolf was only the beginning. Soon, the family reported a series of events that became increasingly difficult to explain. Cattle disappearing, animals behaving strangely, unusual lights appearing in the sky, and perhaps the most disturbing claims were the ones involving their livestock. The Shermans reported that some of their cattle were found dead under strange circumstances. Some accounts describe injuries that appeared unusual. Others involved animals disappearing entirely. The incidents became one of the most discussed parts of the ranch's story. Skeptics argued that natural causes, predators, or human activity could explain many events. But for the family experiencing it firsthand, the pattern felt impossible to ignore. And then came the moments that would transform Skinwalker Ranch from a strange ranch story into something much bigger. The family began reporting strange lights, objects moving through the sky, and experiences inside their own home that they believed were beyond explanation. Imagine going to sleep in your own house and feeling like you were no longer alone. Imagine hearing sounds, but finding nothing there. Imagine seeing something impossible and knowing that tomorrow morning, everyone will expect you to explain it. The Shermans eventually decided they could no longer ignore what was happening. They reached out to people who could investigate. And what happened next would attract the attention of one of the most unusual private investigations in modern history, because soon, Skinwalker Ranch would no longer belong only to one family. Scientists were coming. Researchers were coming. Millions of dollars would be spent trying to answer one question. What was happening at Skinwalker Ranch? After years of unsettling experiences, the story of Skinwalker Ranch began spreading. But what happened next changed everything. Because the mystery was no longer limited to one family's experiences. New witnesses arrived. Researchers arrived. Investigators arrived. And many of them reported seeing things they believed had no simple explanation. The ranch became a place where reports seemed to overlap. Strange lights in the sky, unusual objects, animal encounters, unexplained sounds, and events that appeared to challenge what people thought they knew about the natural world. When researchers began examining the property, they weren't just looking for ghosts. They weren't searching for legends. They were looking for data, measurements, evidence, something they could record, analyze, and explain. But according to reports from those involved, the ranch seemed to produce more questions than answers. One of the most frequently reported phenomena at Skinwalker Ranch involves unusual lights appearing above the property. Witnesses have described lights moving without obvious aircraft patterns, objects appearing and disappearing, strange movements that seemed impossible to explain. Some witnesses interpreted these events as UFO activity. Others suggested possible atmospheric effects, aircraft, satellites, or other conventional explanations. But for those who witnessed them, the experience was unforgettable. But the strange lights were only one part of the mystery. Some of the most unsettling reports involved something much closer to the ground. Over the years, witnesses have reported encounters with unusual animals and creatures. Large wolf-like beings, strange predators, figures moving across the landscape. Some stories sound like ancient folklore, Others sound like eyewitness accounts from people who believed they knew exactly what they saw. The problem? Many of these reports lack physical evidence, leaving investigators trapped between two possibilities. Either something unusual was happening, or human perception was being pushed to its limits. Perhaps the most disturbing aspect of Skinwalker Ranch isn't one specific event, it's the pattern. Witnesses have described experiences involving different people, different years, different investigations. Yet many claim similar themes appear again and again. A feeling of being watched, unusual lights, strange sounds, technology behaving strangely, in the moments where reality itself seemed unstable. Researchers studying the ranch have reported unusual readings in equipment behavior. Some investigations focused on electromagnetic activity. Others examined radiation, geological features, and environmental factors. Skeptics argue that unusual readings can have natural explanations. The Earth's environment is complex. The desert itself can create strange conditions. Equipment can malfunction. Human perception can be unreliable. But supporters of the mystery argue, why does so much seem to happen in the same location? And then came perhaps the strangest chapter in Skinwalker Ranch history. A chapter involving a billionaire, a scientific team, and a government connection that would change the way the world viewed the mystery. Because eventually, Skinwalker Ranch was no longer just a story told by ranchers. It became the subject of serious investigation. A document appears, a government stamp, a classified folder opens, and behind those documents was a question that still remains unanswered. Why was the United States government interested in a remote ranch in Utah? By the late 1990s, Skinwalker Ranch had gained a reputation as one of the strangest places in America. But stories alone were not enough. If something unusual was happening there, someone needed to investigate. Not with rumors, not with legends, but with science. In 1996, the ranch was purchased by billionaire real estate developer and aerospace entrepreneur Robert Bigelow. Unlike many paranormal investigators who began with the belief, Bigelow approached the mystery from a research perspective. He wanted answers, and he was willing to invest significant resources searching for them. Bigelow created an organization called the National Institute for Discovery Science, often known as NIDS. The goal was ambitious: study unusual phenomena using scientific methods. The team included researchers from different backgrounds: scientists, engineers, investigators, people who were not simply looking for a ghost story, but trying to determine whether there was something measurable happening. For years, the team examined reports coming from the ranch. They investigated unusual lights, animal incidents, environmental conditions, and eyewitness accounts from people who claimed to have experienced unexplained events. But perhaps the biggest challenge they faced was proving exactly what they were looking at. Because strange does not always mean supernatural. A flashing light in the sky could be an aircraft. A strange sound could be an animal. An unusual measurement could have a natural explanation. The scientific challenge was not finding something strange. The challenge was finding something that could not be explained. Then years later, Skinwalker Ranch became connected to a much larger conversation. A conversation happening inside the United States government. In the late 2000s, the U.S. government funded a program known as the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program. The program focused on investigating reports of unidentified aerial phenomena. The existence of the program later became public knowledge, and former officials involved in UFO research brought renewed attention to the subject. But here's where the story becomes complicated. Claims that the government investigated Skinwalker Ranch specifically have been debated. Some connections involve researchers who had links to broader government UFO subsidies. Some information remains unclear, and some claims come from interpretations rather than confirmed public records. That uncertainty is part of what keeps the mystery alive. Because the biggest mystery surrounding Skinwalker Ranch is not simply, did something happen? The bigger question is, what exactly happened? Was it a rare combination of natural events? A place where human perception creates powerful experiences? A place of misunderstood incidents? Or does Skinwalker Ranch represent something we do not yet understand? For decades, people have searched for answers. Some left convinced they witnessed something extraordinary. Others left believing there were ordinary explanations waiting to be discovered. But almost everyone agrees on one thing. Skinwalker Ranch is a place where unanswered questions seem to multiply. And the strangest question of all may be this: what if the mystery was never about what people found there? What if the mystery was why, after all these years, the ranch still refuses to give up its secrets? After decades of stories, after years of investigations, after countless witnesses describing strange events, one question remains. What really happened at Skinwalker Ranch? The answer depends on who you ask. Some believe the explanation is completely natural. Others believe something far stranger is happening. And somewhere between those two possibilities is where the mystery lives. The first possibility is the simplest. There may be ordinary explanations hiding behind extraordinary stories. The Utah desert is a complex environment. Unusual weather conditions, geological activity, wildlife behavior, human misunderstanding. All of these things can create events that seem impossible when viewed from a distance. A strange light could be an aircraft. A strange sound could be an animal. An unusual reading could be caused by environmental conditions. Science reminds us of something important. Before we search for the impossible, we must first eliminate the possible. Another possibility is that some events may have been misunderstood, exaggerated, or changed over time. Human memory is powerful, but it is not perfect. Fear can influence what we see. Stories can grow with every retelling. And once a location becomes famous for mystery, every strange event becomes connected to the legend. Some believe the answer could involve technology. The American Southwest has long been associated with aerospace testing, experimental aircraft, advanced sensors, military research. Could some sightings have involved technology that the public did not understand? It's possible, but without definitive evidence, it remains only a theory. And then there's the theory that has made Skinwalker Ranch famous. The possibility that something truly unusual is happening. Some researchers and witnesses have suggested ideas involving unknown physics, interdimensional theories, or phenomena that do not fit within our current understanding. These ideas remain highly speculative, but they capture the imagination because they represent one of humanity's oldest questions. Are there things happening around us that we simply don't have the ability to recognize yet? For more than 30 years, Skinwalker Ranch has remained one of the world's most controversial mysteries. Some see a place filled with unexplained phenomena. Others see a collection of stories waiting for ordinary answers. But perhaps the reason people continue returning to this small piece of Utah desert is it because it represents something bigger, the unknown. That uncomfortable space between what we believe and what we can prove. Because throughout history, Every discovery began as something impossible. The idea that humans could fly. The idea that we could explore space. The idea that invisible forces controlled the universe around us at one time. All of those things sounded impossible. So maybe Skinwalker Ranch is nothing more than a collection of strange events. Or maybe it's a reminder that reality still has mysteries waiting to be uncovered. The desert becomes smaller, the lights fade, the silence returns, and somewhere out there, beneath the endless Utah sky, the questions remain. What really happened at Skinwalker Ranch? Maybe someday we will know, but until then, the ranch keeps its secrets. If you enjoyed this journey into one of America's greatest mysteries, make sure to subscribe and join us for more investigations into the unexplained. Because the world is full of stories that challenge what we think we know. And the next mystery may be even stranger.